So you guys ready to talk some tech? Good deal. I see a lot of notepads out. I see a lot of pens, and I definitely recommend that being the case because this morning we're going to roll up our sleeves and get into some tactics, some nitty-gritty, some strategies, some details to help you guys promote the challenge when it comes to online. Is that okay with everybody? Perfect. You know, it's interesting. When I first got started in this industry, which was a little over a decade ago, I remember the very first rule that I got taught. And the very first rule that I got taught was something called the 3-foot rule. How many of you guys that have been in the industry before, maybe in Visalus, have ever heard of the 3-foot rule before, which means anybody that's within 3 feet from, what do you have to do? Talk to them, right? That was like the very first thing that I got taught, right? That was the number one principle to go build your business was if anybody that comes within 3 feet from you, go ahead and talk to them about your business. And I'll be honest with you guys, the industry over the last decade has been through a lot of transformation in itself. Because I remember 10 years ago as a distributor, right? 18, 19 years old, you know, where we'd have to fire ourselves up. True story, right? Fire ourselves up to go down to the local mall, right? You know, and sit there. And I remember walking around like this nervous anxiety, right? Going over, you know, looking for, quote unquote, a sharp prospect, right? And I remember just the anxiety that would come over, but, you know, how am I going to open up this conversation, right? What are we going to, some of you guys are just, I can see the flashbacks going for a few of you. It's interesting, right? But that's how we grew our business, because that was the only way for you really to go out there and get outside your own personal network, was to go out there and meet people. And I think it's safe to say here we are about a decade later. Have things changed a little bit, ladies and gentlemen? You know, I mean, it is amazing how far technology has come in such a short time period and what that's doing for our industry. It's literally redefining the way that our industry grows. And, you know, it's interesting now because I still find myself teaching the 3-foot rule. It's just not between you and the prospect at the mall, but more like the 3 feet between you and your computer screen. And instead of having to identify that sharp prospect or that one person, you're one click away from hundreds of millions of people. And that's what we're going to talk about today, ladies and gentlemen. I call it the Facebook factor. How many of you guys have seen the article already in the Success from Home magazine? You guys like the magazine or what? I mean, so they asked me, it was interesting, they were putting together the Success from Home magazine, and they had slotted in there a place for a technology article, right? And they gave me a list of individuals, like, who do you want to feature in terms of teaching technology and how it applies to your industry? I look at the list, I'm like, man, we know a lot more than all the people on this list, so they just let me write the article. Was that okay for all of you guys? So what I'm going to be doing is taking the steps that are defined in that Success from Home magazine and diving into a little bit of detail. And this will be a first for many of you guys. Someone asked me, is this different than the webinars you've been doing or what I watched on Vinet? The answer is yes, because as the technology is constantly evolving, so is our understanding of it, our application of it. We're getting feedback real time every single day on what's working, right, from all of you guys, and I appreciate that. How many of you guys in this room have already generated business off Facebook? Just by, you guys look around the room, round of applause for all of you guys. I mean, that's an amazing thing. So that's kind of the gist, right? Social media, Web 2.0 technology. I don't want to get stuck in a lot of tech talk with all of you guys up here this morning, but when we talk about social media, it's a pretty big buzzword. When we talk about this Web 2.0 thing, pretty big buzzword. All we're talking about is where the internet has come in terms of tools that allow us as people to communicate and collaborate. So I want you guys to understand, when you ever hear those terms, it's what's allowing us as people to do what? Communicate, to interact. And, you know, when we finally figured that out, myself, Nick, and Ryan, it was about 5 years ago, and we sat there and said, wait a minute, isn't our whole business model all based on people doing what? Communicating. So when we realized that the tools that were being developed were the most efficient and effective ways to allow people to communicate and collaborate at speeds and velocities that have never before been possible, we knew at that very minute that that would redefine our very industry. And that's what put Visalus on the track of this about 5 years ago. That's what's kept us years ahead of every competitor out there. And that's what gives you guys the education to go out there and have an edge over everybody else in the home-based business space. Are you guys excited about that? Right? So that's the gist when we talk about the Facebook factor. Literally, I believe right now, right, is the biggest shift that we will all go through in our lives. It's happening right now. And you guys don't even know that you're a part of it. How many of you guys have already had some sort of technology, website come into your life that totally changed your normal routine or your normal actions? Give me an idea of a website, a technology, something that's changed the way you go about it every single day. Go ahead and shout it out. Yeah, eBay, Facebook, text messaging, what else? It's interesting, like we're driving in cars these days, and it's like, it's impossible to get lost because you either have navigation in your dashboard or everybody in the phone has, Google Maps or Easy Navigator or all the stuff. I mean, it's crazy, right? We're going through massive, massive shifts. To deny that or not accept that would be naive. I'll share with you guys a little bit about Facebook in particular. When we talk about social media, there's so much stuff out there. It is a never-ending ocean. I promise you that. It's never-ending because it's always growing. But Facebook seems to be the favorite when it comes to people getting started in using this type of technology to go out there and promote, especially Visalus. It's what we choose to train, simply because it's the biggest. If you guys aren't familiar with these stats, by 2010, aka this year, Gen Y will outnumber the baby boomers. Gen Y will outnumber the baby boomers, and 96% of them have joined a social network. You guys got to think about this, right? I'm talking about opportunity. To reach 50 million users, it took radio 38 years, TV 13 years, internet 4 years, the iPod 3 years, Facebook added 100 million users, double that in less than 9 months. Okay? Again, we're talking about the rate of change, the velocity of change. Right off the Facebook stats, if Facebook were a country, it'd be the 4th largest country in the world, between United States and Indonesia. There's more than 400 million active users on Facebook, 50% log on every single day. You guys, I mean, are you kidding me? I look at this and I'm like, nobody ever has to go to a mall again. I mean, as long as we learn how to use the technology, okay? Now, I've broken this down into 4 simple steps. Here's the good news about where this training has evolved. I used to stand up here and bounce around a lot of different ideas, give you guys a lot of recommendations on what we see working. We boiled this down into 4 things that I know every single person in this room can do. This is going to be simple. It's going to be what? Simple, okay? I will give this training with the assumption that all of you in this room already have a Facebook account. Is that okay with everybody, okay? I'm going to assume that you at least know the basic navigation. You can get your way around a Facebook. If you're here for the first time in your first introduction, take notes, grab this. Everything we're doing is being video recorded, okay? So you guys will have that on the event DVD. You can rewatch it over and over again, because we will go pretty quickly. So we're going to go over 4 basic steps, and before I dive into these, I want to give some real-life examples. I've been testing this stuff on small, intimate levels, one-on-one educations with a lot of our leadership. And do I have James Cardova in the room? I know he's, okay, James is right here in front. You can stay right there. Do I have a handheld? If I can get a handheld to the front if we do have one. You guys, I sat down with James. How long ago was it when I was in Salt Lake? Do you know the date exactly? Okay, so I sat down with James on April 1st. And we were in between meetings. He was out there in his market. We were getting ready for an event. And, actually, I think one of our meetings ended up no-showing, right? So we had about an hour segment where I sat down, and he was actually one of the very first people I gave this 4-step format to. I sat down with just him for about, an hour. I didn't tell him at the time that was the first time I broke it down like that and gave him the information, right? But I walked him through this, and James, without going into a lot of detail and testimonies right now, just pure numbers, okay, on the last, how many months it's been since April. If you can just stand up and let everybody, do we have a microphone? If you can, I guess they're not in here. If we can get a handheld, we will need that. If you can go ahead and just let everybody know, since April, just pure customer growth results. Have you generated any business, anything in terms of just applying, just Facebook, not your traditional group?
On April 1st, I had a meeting with Blake in regards to Facebook. He said, James, basically get over 2,000 in customer volume and focus on sharing stories. In April, I generated 1,100 in new customer volume just from Facebook. Then in May, did the same thing, an additional 1,100 in customer volume from Facebook. And then June, it just got out of control. Over 3,000 in customer volume, had over 5,700 in customer volume just from Facebook in June, applying the 3 months. Sharing stories, having people get involved, and having new people that had experience share their stories on Facebook.
You guys give it up for James Cardova. You guys, I want you to understand what he just said. $5,700 in personal customer volume, 100% off of, for those of you guys that know the comp plan, when you're over that type of volume mark, what are you making on per? Do the math, okay? 25% commission on $5,700 in personal customer volume just by applying for steps. Okay? I wanted James to say that. I know that a lot of you guys have those stories and different results. His was very quantifiable because it was only 3 months ago. And the thing I love about James is I told him once, and he actually listened, and then what did he do? He did it, okay? So knowing that that potential is out there for all of you over the next 4 months, how many guys over the next 90 days wouldn't mind having over $5,000 in personal customer volume? Okay, pay attention. So let's go ahead and dive in. We're gonna